Good afternoon. We'll get started in a moment. Good afternoon and welcome to today's lunch break with the Rabbi. Today is Thursday, June 10th, 2021. It is the 30th day of the month of Sivan, which makes it the first day of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. We are now entering a new month, which is the summer months. We now begin the summer months, the hot months of the summer, which, according to the Talmud, explains is a time for study and learning. So I welcome your suggestions, your comments, critique, to join us, and suggestions for the lunch break with the Rabbi. Today we're going to be discussing not only a little bit of the Torah reading, but also this coming Sunday is the 3rd of Tammuz, which is the anniversary of the passing of the Rebbe, and we will talk a little about how these two correlate and connect with each other. There was a fellow, let's call him John, who grew up with a friend of his, Joe, and the both of them went to school together, graduated together, went to college together. They even were drafted together in the army, and most of their young childhood life grew up together in doing many different things. And they had the same education, same background, same place they came from. But once John went into the business field, John became very successful. And whatever he touched became gold. He became unbelievably successful, very wealthy, very prosperous, very generous, very famous. You mention it, you know it, and he became it. And Joe is very jealous of John. How is it? We both went to school together, both did the same things together. This guy is successful, and me, I'm a little schlamazel, barely making ends meet. Finally, one day, the king wanted to show Joe, teach him a little bit of an important lesson. And he called him and he said, you know, Joe, you can pick whatever you want. You can get pick whatever you want. Your wish, my command, but on one condition. Whatever you get, John gets double. He says, wow, that's an amazing offer. So Joe thinks, if I'm going to ask for $1 million, that means John is going to get $2 million. I'll ask for $1 billion to get $2 billion. I don't want to make him get double. I'm already jealous of him. So what does Joe come up with? And he says, listen here. He asks the king, take out one of my eyes. Like this, John should get both eyes taken out. Over here, this is an old parable that was given to what jealousy does. Jealousy corrupts that not only are you jealous of what the other person has, but you're willing to destroy what you have. You're willing to give up and lose what you have just that the other person shouldn't get more. So bad is the attitude and the behavior of jealousy. We talk about jealousy because this week's Torah reading, what was the motivation behind Korach when he made the coup against Moshe? What was it that it bothered him? Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people. He was jealous that Aaron was the high priest. He was afraid of nepotism. What was it that was really killing him, so to speak? And ultimately did kill him literally. The Talmud gives 3 different examples, besides for the fact that it came along saying that who made Aaron in charge, since when are you putting your family in charge? But he tried to prove his point with 2 different analogies. He comes to Moses and tells Moses, if I were to have a room that was full of holy scrolls, do I still need to put a mezuzah? Moses says, of course. And he starts to chuckle and laugh, and all the people that were with him and say, what nonsense? Why would I need a mezuzah on a room that has full of Torah scrolls? Which in the Torah scroll has many same of the portions that are in the mezuzah, much more names than God's name than is in the mezuzah. Then he asked another question. What about a tzitzis? He came with a tzitzis which was completely blue. He said, do I still need a string of blue in it? Last week's Torah reading tells us that every tzitzis should have a blue string. Moses says, of course. And again, he makes a whole mockery and says, Moses, you're making this stuff up. If my entire tzitzis is blue, why do I need a blue string? Now, if we look at these stories, Korach wasn't just a simple kid. Korach was the wealthiest Jew. He was a great scholar. He had lineage. He came from Moses' family. What was it that was bothering him? What was it that he came with these questions and analogies that not just plain analogies? He was trying to prove a point. Proof in the pudding is that 1,000 years later, Rabbi Bar Chana, the Talmud tells us that he was once traveling in the Sinai desert and some Arab told him, he says, I'm going to take you to a special place. And he took him to a place in the desert and he said, this is the place where Korach and his factions were swallowed into the ground. And he saw smoke bellowing from the ground. And as he puts his ear to where the smoke is coming out of, he hears voices saying, Moshe emes v'soyrosei emes. Moshe is true and his Torah is true, and we are the liars. The word emes, the Talmud goes on to say, and many holy books explain, doesn't only mean truth, but is also an acronym of the words Aharon, Mezuzah, and Tchelas. That he was saying that the fact that Aaron was chosen to be the high priest, the question on the mezuzah and the question on the tchelas, on the blue bull, all Moses was correct. But what is so significant about these? What is so unique about these questions that he was telling you? What Korach's complaint was more than just asking a question about a mezuzah, was more than just asking a question about blue bull. Korach's issue was as follows. Korach believed, so to speak, in equality. Korach said, you know what? Why do we need a Moses? Why do we need a leader? If you have somebody who's a whole Torah scroll, what do I need a mezuzah for? If I'm entire blue, why do I need one blue string? He was specifically taking these two examples to show that if somebody studies Torah, why does he need a teacher? Why does he need a Rebbe? If somebody does all the mitzvot, why does he need a leader? Why does he need an Aaron? He uses the terminology, he says, we're all holy. We're all great. We all heard Torah from God at Mount Sinai. We were all present. Why do you, Moshe, make yourself greater? Why does there have to be a tribe of Levi that's unique and segregated from amongst the Jewish people? The question that Korach was asking was a deeper question. What is the need for a leader in any generation? What is the need for a Rebbe? Why do we need somebody to be a leader of the Jewish people? About 40 years ago, or more, about 50 years ago, the student Jonathan Sacks, who later on became the chief rabbi of England, was studying philosophy in Cambridge, England, Cambridge University. And he went through 3 years of philosophy where many professors, atheists, self-proclaimed atheists, came along and said that the human being is nothing more than a package of bones and veins and sinews put together with some electrodes and atoms making them work. There's nothing behind it. The person comes, the person goes. And after 3 years of studying this atheistic philosophy, he decided he has so many questions about God, Judaism. He wants to go on a tour of asking different rabbis different questions to get answers. And as he comes to America, he went to many different rabbis, one of them, Rabbi Joseph Dov Soloveitchik from Yeshiva University. And he treks across to New York and he comes to the Rebbe before the holiday of Tishrei. And as he meets the Rebbe, he comes in with a private audience to the Rebbe's office, about to ask all his many different questions. But as soon as he walked into the office, something changed. The Rebbe asked him, where are you from? He said, Cambridge University. He asked him, how many Jewish students study in Cambridge? He gave a number of 1,000 students. And he asked them, what do they know about Judaism in Cambridge University, those students? He says, almost nothing. And he says, and what are you doing about that? How are you as a Jewish student helping the Jewish students there study more about their Judaism? All of a sudden, all his philosophical questions were just removed. He had no more questions. Over here, the Rebbe saw straight through his soul. He asked him, a simple Jewish student, a student who was studying philosophy with many questions of his own, what was he doing to help the other Jewish students? It wasn't anymore about philosophy. It was about his soul, his connection with another soul, realizing his purpose on this world. This is the story of Korach and Moshe. When a Jew looks at a mezuzah is a physical item that any time you walk by it, you give it a kiss. When a person sees a mezuzah, all his doubts and questions about God are removed. He sees holiness, purity, genuine holiness. When a person sees a tzaddik, a righteous person, a Rebbe, they see holiness. They see someone who imbues and follows and lives what is called godly spirituality. Someone who is able to merge the physical and the spiritual, bring the two together in a holy, beautiful harmony. Many different ways how this takes an effect. Before penicillin came out, many different communities in Russia, Poland, Ukraine were plagued with a terrible disease and pandemic called the typhus disease. One such person who was hurt and plagued by it and got very ill because of it was the Rebbe's great-grandfather, Rabbi Shlomo Yanovsky. While in the city of Ukraine, he was struck and very ill with the typhus disease. Because of that, put in seclusion, and therefore nobody was able to visit him. And unfortunately, and we know of it too much today, where people had to be put in isolation, seclusion, so that the disease does not spread. A dear friend of his by the name of Usher Nikolayev, Usher Grossman, wanted to visit him and give him some encouragement while he was in seclusion. But in no means would they allow him to come in because they were afraid of the disease spreading. So every single day he would go to the outside of the hospital room of where Rabbi Shlomo was and read lines of Tanya out loud so he should hear it through his window and try to give him some encouragement. A few months later, Reb Usher is at home and he gets a knock on his door, and Rabbi Shlomo comes to visit him. And he's shocked and surprised. First of all, he thanks God that he was healed, he was able to survive the typhus. But he comes to him and he says, "You were my first stop after I got out of the hospital, because I want to thank you that I was able to survive." Every single day, it felt like my life was about to end. But when you came and you read those words of the Tanya by my window, you energized me. You gave me that spiritual dose of penicillin that kept me going and was able to fuse the physical and the spiritual, give me the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dose that I needed to survive and get through this isolation. A Rebbe is that voice of heaven. A Rebbe is that voice on the outside, giving us the encouragement, giving us the ability to see through our barriers, through all those panes of glass that may be stopping us from seeing what our real makeup is, giving us an appreciation for what our soul is all about. When Rashi talks about an interesting episode of when the Jewish people were in Egypt, Jacob planted trees so when they leave Egypt, they should be able to take it and build a holy tabernacle when they're in the desert. Many commentaries ask, why? Why couldn't they just buy trees, wood from the people in the desert? There were many merchants that came there. And Rashi quotes a fellow by the name of Tanchuma, which means comfort. Says because Jacob knew that the Jewish people would be suffering in exile for 210 years. And he wanted that throughout their suffering, they should be able to see those trees that he planted as a reminder that there's going to come a time that they'll leave Egypt and build the tabernacle. That brought comfort to the Jewish people. In our generation, we have a Rebbe, whose name was also Menachem, which means comfort. His entire life was to bring comfort to the Jewish people. One mitzvah campaign after another mitzvah campaign, one emissary to another far corner in the world, or even to a close place where there's a Jew that's alone. The Rebbe made sure to bring them comfort and encouragement that they are never alone, that they have a mezuzah that they can cleave to, a tzitzis that they can wear, that they can remember and remind themselves that there's going to come a time, the coming of Mashiach, and we're going to come out of this exile. We're going to be reunited, and we'll be able to see and feel spirituality at its best. But every single time we do another mitzvah, every single time we do something that the Rebbe asked us to do, put on tefillin with another person, come to a study class, go to a minyan, help another Jew, physically, emotionally, spiritually, we connect with the tzaddik, we connect with the Rebbe, and we make this world a holier place, a spiritual place, seeing through all the different barriers, but seeing straight to the soul of the individual, uplifting that individual, and bringing them above any question or any doubt. The Rebbe is there, guiding us. The need for the Rebbe is because the Rebbe is the one that lifts us all to a different plateau to see the world from a different perspective, giving us the comfort, the guidance, and the hope. And as we await the coming of Mashiach, may it be now. Amen. God bless you. Let us all take on one extra mitzvah that we do this weekend and honor the Rebbe for his great legacy, that he continues to guide us and lead us until the coming of Mashiach. Have a good Shabbos. God bless you. All the best.